I'm predicting one player from every NBA team that will improve this season. Starting off with the Boston Celtics, I'm picking Jaylen Brown. Now, I'm going to be honest, the Celtics is a very tough team to pick. Like, who's going to improve? I mean, I could pick maybe like Peyton Pritchard. And I know Jaylen Brown just won Finals MVP, but the reason that I'm picking him is because in the regular season, I feel like he just didn't live up to expectations. He had 23 points per game. The season before that, he averaged almost 27 points per game. I just feel like his numbers will rise a little bit in this next season. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls, and I'm picking Ayo Dosunmu to improve for the Bulls. A few other guys I was thinking about picking was like Kobe White and Patrick Williams, but Ayo Dosunmu, being 24 years old, coming off a pretty solid season, I think he's going to get even better. Now he's potentially going to be playing behind Josh Giddey, which I'm not the biggest of Josh Giddey fans, so maybe he even takes that starting spot as the season goes on. But I think Ayo's a pretty safe pick to improve next year. Moving on to the Atlanta Hawks, and I am picking Onyeka Okongwu to improve this upcoming season. He's a player that has improved every single season of his career. If you look at his stats, all the numbers just continuously improve. And now he's entering his year 5 season. He's really, getting into the groove of things. And the reason why I'm picking Onyeka is because the Hawks passed on Alexander Sarr at the #1 pick of the NBA draft. I feel like he was the clear-cut, maybe not clear-cut, like generational #1 pick. But Sarr, I feel like should have went #1, but the Hawks said, hey, we got Capella, we got Onyeka, we don't need another big. Hawks believe in Onyeka, and I think that he is also going to improve this year. Now we have the Denver Nuggets, and my pick is going to be Christian Brown. Now, the Nuggets have obviously lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who is now on the Orlando Magic, and they also lost Reggie Jackson. So they're losing out on some guard play here. Christian Brown is potentially going to start unless they go out and get somebody. Right now, I believe he'll be the starting shooting guard. So the reason that I'm picking him is just because he's a young player who's looked good in the minutes that he has got, although they've been kind of limited. Now he's given the starting role potentially. Even if he's not, even if he's off the bench, I still think Christian Brown is going to take some solid improvements this upcoming season. Next up, we have the Golden State Warriors, and I'm picking Jonathan Kuminga to really improve this next season. Look, if you guys been following the channel for a minute, you might know that I'm a Warriors fan. There's some other options I could pick, like maybe Brandon Pajemski or maybe Trace Jackson Davis. But Kuminga is that guy that people are wondering, is he going to pan out and be a star? Because he has the perfect body. He's got the frame for it. He's also got the physicality. And after averaging 16 points per game, I think he could be a near 20 point per game scorer in this upcoming season. So I'm picking him. I feel like it's not the hardest of picks. I feel like most of you guys would agree that Kuminga would be the guy in the Warriors to pick as a player to improve. Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I'm excited to see what Kuminga does next season. Next up, we have the Dallas Mavericks, and I will be picking Derek Lively to make big improvements next year for this Mavs team. There was a few other guys that I was considering at first. I was going to do Jaden Hardy, but I was like, you know what? They brought in Klay Thompson. They already got Kyrie and Luka. I just don't know how much minutes Jaden Hardy's going to get. I was also considering Daniel Gafford, and it ultimately came down to Gafford versus Lively. Both of them, I think, are going to improve. They just are so good defensively. If they can get a little bit better offensively, specifically Lively, since that's my pick, I think that Lively's going to be a stud. He's 20 years old right now. He's so young. He was a rookie playing in the NBA Finals. He already has a lot of experience under his belt. And so, yeah, Lively, I think, is going to be a great NBA player. And I think next year we're going to see him improve even more. So now we have the Brooklyn Nets, and my pick is going to be Cam Thomas. Like, there's not a lot of options. There really isn't. You guys can take a look at the roster. There is, I don't know who to pick. I don't know who to pick. And I'm not the biggest of Cam Thomas fans because he's just such a defensive liability. There's not much to his game except for scoring. But with a team that's going to be very bad, they're going to be in the lottery. They're going to miss the playoffs. Cam Thomas is going to put up numbers. So it really just comes down to volume, and he's going to get a lot of volume, a lot of shots, and he potentially is going to average 25 points per game. But also, I'm not the biggest believer in Cam Thomas, but if there is someone to pick, I think it's him on a team that really has not a lot of options. Now we're on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and my pick is going to be Evan Mobley. There was a few other guys that I was considering. I wanted to say Craig Porter Jr., but I feel like he just might get buried on this Cavs depth chart behind Donovan Mitchell, Garland, LeVert, and even Sam Merrill. So I just don't know how much minutes Craig Porter Jr. is going to get, although I think he could see some improvements if he does get playing time. But Mobley's good at basketball. He's an all-around good player, rebounding. Defensively, he's a monster. He can score as well. And I feel like we're just kind of waiting for him to take that jump into being a star. You know what I mean? I don't really feel like he's there yet, but I feel like he'll get there soon, averaging almost 16 points per game last year, 9 boards per game. I think he can be a guy that averages, maybe 20 points per game. I'm not saying next season, but I think we will see strides towards that in this upcoming year. Next up is the Charlotte Hornets, and this pick is very easy for me. That is going to be Brandon Miller to improve for the Hornets. I mean, last year he just showed us how good he can really be. He started off a little bit slow, and then once LaMelo went down, they had a few injuries. Miller became really the focal point of this Hornets offense. He just showed how good of a shooter he is, how good of a scorer he is, and just how good of a shot creator he is. Obviously, his defense, we're gonna have to see how good of a defender he can be because it didn't look great, but offensively, Brandon Miller is an absolute bucket, so that's an easy pick for me. Next up is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'm gonna pick Naz Reid. I also kind of wanted to pick Rob Dillingham, but I'm just gonna kind of leave rookies out of this for now because what are we really basing this off of? Improving from them in college? Like, I don't really know, but Naz Reid to me feels kind of similar to how like Montrezl Harrell was back when he was on the Clippers coming off the bench. Like, there wasn't really room for him to be a starter, but he was just so good that like he just deserves to be a starter. Like, there's no other way to put it. Naz Reid should be starting in the NBA. Is he going to start next year? I mean, probably not because they still have Cat and Rudy, but Naz Reid, I think, is going to continue to improve off of his great season last year. Next up, we have the LA Clippers, and my pick is going to be Terrence Mann, just solely because of the departure of Paul George. And now Terrence Mann is expected to start at shooting guard. I think him and Norman Powell will see a lot of the minutes at shooting guard, but Terrence Mann, he's just a solid scorer, and I think just with the increase of minutes he's going to get, I think we can expect him to improve. Now we have the Houston Rockets, and my pick is going to be Jabari Smith Jr. I feel like this is kind of shocking because I feel like popular picks for the Rockets could be Jalen Green or maybe Amen Thompson or even Reed Shepherd, although I said we're not going to include rookies, but he's looking really good in the summer league so far. I just feel like it's a team with a ton of players that are poised to improve. They also have Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason, and even Alperen Sengun. So they have so much players that are young and just ready to improve. This is going to be a team that we expect to be in the playoffs for years to come. Maybe it's not going to be this next season, but 2, 3, 4 years from now, we expect them to be there. Jabari's going to be my pick just because I've always been a fan of him since college. I just think he has everything. He can defend, he can get boards. He averaged 8 rebounds per game, 14 points per game. He can shoot the 3 ball. He can pretty much do it all. And I think Jabari Smith is almost kind of underrated in the NBA. And I'm also not completely bought in on Jalen Green. I know a lot of people are very high on him, and hey, he'll probably prove me wrong. He went crazy last year, especially at the end of the season when Sengun went down. But I just can't pick Jalen Green, partially because I also had him in fantasy basketball and he really just let me down. And by the time he was going off, I was already eliminated. So I've got a little bit of a grudge on Jalen Green, but Jabari Smith, I mean, he's just a monster. We have the New York Knicks, and I'm going to pick Mikal Bridges. Brooklyn just didn't work out for him, but I think with the Knicks, he can play elite in his role compared to with the Nets, where he was asked to be this star, superstar player that the offense was ran through. He's just not that guy, but now playing alongside, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and all these other scorers, I think Bridges is really going to look elite in his role. We have the Pistons, and I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but my pick is Cade Cunningham. I think Jalen Duren is also another pick. He is a dog, and I think he will also improve, but I'm bought in on Cade Cunningham. I know the Pistons absolutely suck, but I think that he is going to continue to improve as the years goes on. We have the Miami Heat, and my pick is going to be Nikola Jovic. He is expected to start at power forward for the Miami Heat next season, and I wanted to pick Jaime Jaquez Jr., but I was like, hey, Jovic is expected to start. He's going to get a lot more minutes, and Jovic is a guy that I've been in on since, last year. I watched him last year in Summer League, and he looked really good. He's the guy that's almost 7 feet tall, can dribble, he can shoot. You know what I'm saying? I just think the ceiling is very high for him. The sky is the limit for Jovic, and he's going to be potentially starting most likely this next season. So that's an easy pick for me for an improvement in a player. Next up, we have the OKC Thunder. And originally I was going to pick Jalen Williams, but I'm actually going to say Chet Holmgren makes the biggest improvement for this team. It's a team with a lot of young players. Everybody knows it. They're a very talented team. I think J-Dub is still a very good pick for this, but Chet, I mean, you can't really go wrong. You can pick anybody on this team. You're not really going to be wrong because I feel like they will improve. It'll be crazy if they don't. Chet averaging 16 points per game, 8 rebounds per game last year. Obviously a player that can shoot, protect the paint, do it all really. And I think he's just only going to get better with time. So next season, Chet's he's going to improve. I don't think anyone really disagrees with me on that one. Now we have the Los Angeles Lakers. I know a lot of you guys are Lakers fans. So you might have been, looking or skipping around the video to find this part, but I'm going to go with Austin Reeves to improve. This is a team that doesn't have too many young players. I was potentially going to say Max Christie because I think he will get some more minutes this year, but I'm not sure how many. I'm not sure if it's enough minutes to where he'll, really improve. Whereas Austin Reeves, he's going to be a staple in this team. And with LeBron only getting older, he's going to be entering his age 40 NBA season. I think he's going to have to, give the Reeves the ball out offensively, and Reeves going to take that load off LeBron. And I just think AR-15 is only getting better as the years goes on. Now we have the Memphis Grizzlies, and I'm gonna pick Jaren Jackson Jr. to improve. Now this is kind of a weird one. I just think last year he didn't have the best of seasons. Now that's gonna be mainly because his teammates missed a lot of time. Ja Morant only played a few games. Desmond Bane missed like more than half the season. So Jaren Jackson Jr. just didn't have a lot of help defensively. He didn't look like the same guy he was when he was the depoy in 2022, 2023. I also did want to pick like GG Jackson here, but I think with all the starters coming back and everyone being healthy, I think GG's honestly probably going to decline in his game just because he's not going to get as much usage in this team's offense. We have the Philadelphia 76ers up next. Now I'm going to pick Jared McCain. You know, I wanted to leave rookies out of this video as much as possible, but I really don't know who to pick other than him. Maybe you could say Tyrese Maxey. I feel like there's not a lot of choices because like I'm not really going to pick Paul George. He's getting old. Kelly Oubre, I mean, it's whatever. And B just averaged like 35 points per game. Like I'm not really gonna pick him, but Jared McCain, you know, I think there's not really something to compare it to other than him in college, but I think coming in, I'm just gonna say he's gonna make an impact for this team off the bench. I hope they use him as much as they should because I think he's a high IQ player, can hit some shots, play defense, especially given his smaller size. He can play defense pretty well. For the Indiana Pacers, I'm gonna pick Aaron Naismith. I really liked what he did for this Pacers team in the playoffs last season. Going all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, he showed that he can play very good one-on-one defense on pretty much anybody. And offensively, I think he's a bucket. He shot 42% from three last year, averaging 12 points per game. I think that next season, he'll get that number up. You know, he'll average maybe 14 points per game. And I just think his defense is going to improve. His offense is going to improve. It's an easy pick for me. Next up is the Orlando Magic. And this is a very, very easy pick for me. It's going to be Paolo Banchero, who averaged 22 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. I feel like it's really no secret Paolo Banchero is expected to be one of the newest superstars in the NBA. As guys like Curry, you know, LeBron, Kevin Durant exit, guys like Paolo Banchero are kind of expected to take that, you know, stardom, that superstar spot in the NBA. And I am a believer in Paolo Banchero. I'm not going to say he's going to be the next LeBron or the next Curry. I'm not really saying that, but he's going to be one of the best players for years to come. And he's only going to improve as he is 21 years old right now, entering age 22 season. He's going to get better. We're now onto the Portland Trailblazers, and this team is very bad, but my pick is going to be Scoot Henderson. Now listen. Scoot was one of the most memed players last season. He was one of the most made fun of players last season, especially because of the hype that he had coming into the NBA. Being picked 3rd overall, he was one of the worst rookies, especially to start the year. But by the end of the year, by the time the Trailblazers were completely out of the playoff picture, you know, any chance of making the play-in, Scoot actually started to play pretty good. I think he was averaging like something like 18 points per game, 10 assists per game over like the last month. Like he was really picking it up. And I think now, you know, feeling out the NBA, getting another year under his belt, I think Scoot is going to improve after his pretty bad rookie season. Next up is the Phoenix Suns, and I'm going to pick Grayson Allen, and I really don't know who to pick for this team because I'm not going to pick KD. I mean, I could pick maybe Devin Booker to improve. I'm not going to pick Bradley Beal. I'm not going to pick Nurkic. Like, this is a weird team to pick a player that's going to improve, so I'll just go with Grayson Allen. I mean, he shot the lights out last season, 46% from 3, averaging 13.5 points per game. I don't know. I'm just going to pick Grayson. Next is the New Orleans Pelicans, and my pick is going to be Mr. Herb Jones. Now, this is a very loaded team with DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson. A lot of those guys are probably going to improve as well. But Herb Jones off the bench, he's a guy that should be starting on probably 95% of NBA teams. Herb Jones should be starting, but on a loaded Pelicans team right now, he's expected to come off the bench. Obviously, they're going to have some injuries, and you know he'll easily slot into that lineup. But Herb Jones is so good defensively. Offensively, he doesn't miss, 42% from 3, and I think he's only going to get better next season. Next up is the Toronto Raptors, and my pick is going to be Emmanuel Quickley. Now, I feel like a popular pick would be Scotty Barnes. With the departure of OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam now, you know, for this next season, Scotty Barnes is really going to have the team kind of to himself, and yeah, he's going to improve. But Emmanuel Quickley, I feel like, has that high risk, high reward type of potential in his jump. Like, he has that most improved player type potential, where he averaged 17 points per game last year, shooting 40% from 3. I think he can really take a jump and be, you know, averaging, I don't even know, 23 points per game. I mean, the sky's the limit, I feel like, for Quickley. His bag is deep offensively, and so we'll just have to see. But yeah, he's my pick. Now we have the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm going to pick Damian Lillard. There's not a lot of people, there's not a lot of options to pick with this Bucks team. But Lillard last year, it wasn't the Lillard that we kind of expected. You know, obviously they were injured. Him and Giannis were injured in the playoffs. but Lillard in the regular season didn't really look like Lillard. And I feel like, you know, obviously he changed teams first time in his career. Now with another season under his belt, I think he'll be more accustomed to, you know, Milwaukee and everything. So I feel like he will improve next season compared to how he played last year. Now we have the Washington Wizards, and I hate to say it, but I am going to say Jordan Poole will improve on this Wizards team. I also kind of wanted to pick Corey Kispert, so that should probably be my pick. But after how bad Jordan Poole was last year, after finally, well, not finally leaving, but after leaving the Golden State Warriors, everyone thought this dude was about to average like over 20 points per game. I remember ESPN was putting out projections saying that he'd average like 26, 28 points per game for the Wizards, because obviously they don't have a lot of scoring options, but he only averaged 17 points per game. I think he'll be back in the groove a little bit better next year. I'm not gonna say he's gonna be averaging 25 points per game, but I think it'll look a little bit better, hopefully, for this Wizards team. For the Utah Jazz, I'm picking Keontae George to be the most improved player for this team. He's expected to be the starting point guard for the Utah Jazz heading into next season, and he's just a really good scorer. He can pass. I also think he's going to shoot a little bit better. Last year, he only shot 33% from three. I think that number will go up, and I think a lot of people just expect Keontae George to take a step forward. For the Sacramento Kings, I am picking Keegan Murray. Now, this is a player that's comparable to Nikola Jovic for one reason. Last summer league, I watched a lot of games. Keegan Murray and Nikola Jovic were the two players that jumped out to me the most as like players that can really break out if given the opportunity. Now, I don't know if the Kings are going to give him the opportunity. That's the thing, because they're bringing in DeMar DeRozan. Keegan's kind of used as like a spot up. They kind of just put him in the corner. You know, they have him coming around, taking dribble handoffs and shooting it. You know, he's obviously an elite three-point shooter, but I think, you know, he only shot 36% from three. I think that number can rise, and I think he'll get better at defense and just better at shot creation going into next season. Next up, we have the San Antonio Spurs, and this is just probably the easiest pick of the entire video. It's going to be Wemby, Victor Wembanyama. I mean, he averaged 21 points per game last year, 10.6 rebounds per game, and he just blocked everything. I think he had 5 stocks per game, which is unreal. He's 20 years old, and he's like, what, 7'4"? I mean, some people are saying he's like 7'5", 7'6". He's unreal. I mean, I feel like I really don't have to explain, but he's just going to get better. He really is just only going to get better as time goes on, and next year it's going to be scary, and I think he's going to actually take a huge jump. I think he is already like kind of only behind like Jokic and Embiid when it comes to centers, or at least by the end of next season, people will be saying that.